Test, test, sound test, AFNA, Thursday, March 24th.
I am ready. We're live. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Audit and Finance Committee of March the 24th. I do also want to welcome my council colleagues present in chambers today, Councillor Clark and Councillor Wilson. Thank you for being here. Okay, members of when prompted by Councillor, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. Any presentations and reports considered at this meeting are available on the city's website, and that members of the public can contact the city's clerk to acquire documents in an alternate form. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. Members are reminded of the 5-minute time limit, which will be adhered to during this meeting, and members can request another opportunity to speak if they require more time to ask questions or make comments. Please note that quorum is present. Thank you, everyone. And today's committee meeting is being run as a hybrid meeting in anticipation of time when you will have the option of attending committee meetings in person or virtually. Councillors participating virtually won't see any changes to the process for now, and you'll still need to sign into eScribe for access to the agenda for votes and to get on the speakers list. For today, I'll ask for your patience during the voting process as there is a slight change in the way the results are displayed. So, Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. Items 10.3 and 10.4, both citizen committee reports from the Hamilton Women and Gender Equity Committee, both respecting reserve funding. Both have been withdrawn, as after further input from finance staff, it was determined that these citizen committee reports were not necessary for their financial processes. Also, there is a revised appendix to item 7.5, which is the 2021 fourth quarter noncompliance with the procurement policy report, FCS 21010C.
So, thank you for that. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Brenda Johnson. Electronic vote, please. Thank you. Carries 7-0. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to move on now to approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of February the 17th. May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes? Moved by Councillor Powers, second by Councillor Wilson. All in favor? Councillor Johnson, did you have a question? No, thank you. Did I skip it? Are there any declarations of interest today? Oh, and the vote carries 7-0 on the minutes. Are there any declarations of interest today? Seeing none, thank you. So we're going to move on to item 5.1 is correspondence from Stephanie Bertolo respecting their resignation from the Women and Gender Equity Committee and the recommendations to receive. Councillor Wilson, you wish to speak on this?
I do. Thank you, Chair Pearson. Before receiving this correspondence, I would just like to express on behalf of the City of Hamilton, and I know members of this committee, our thanks and gratitude for Stephanie Bertolo's volunteer service on the Women and Gender Equity Committee, recently serving as chair. I think in the past, this committee has expressed its fulsome support for sending a letter of thanks for that service, and I trust that will continue. I would like to take a special, to make a special note of Stephanie, who has been a tireless volunteer on so many committees and bodies in this city, beginning at McMaster University, and her commitment to the students through the MSU, the McMaster Student Union. She is a graduate, a junior fellow of Massey College at the University of Toronto. She is a very respected scholar on matters of housing, everything urban. an analyst previously with the Ministry of Infrastructure, and now a full-time policy analyst working in Toronto, hence her resignation because she's now a resident of Toronto, unfortunately for us. She is a fierce, proud, young, progressive feminist, certainly someone who is dedicated to every single citizen with the hopes and dreams of supporting them in their journey through life. And I'm very, very proud to know her, very proud to have worked with her. And it is our loss, but I wish her only good things. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, thank you. As direction, would you like that Councillor Wilson puts that in a motion or direction to clerks to prepare and send a letter?
In anticipation, I did prepare a motion just saying that the resignation be received and a letter be sent to thank them for their service, if that's appropriate.
Okay, Councillor Wilson, I'll have you move it, seconded by Councillor Clark. Thank you, and that'll be a recorded vote, please. Councillor Powers is thumbs up. Thank you. That carries 7-0, and we're going to move on to item 5.2 is correspondence from Trent Jarvis, Hamilton Waterfront Trust, respecting an update to the Audit, Finance and Administration Committee in April or May of 2022. The recommendation is to receive. May I have a mover and a seconder on that? Moved by Councillor Vanderbeek, second by Councillor. Did you wish to speak on that, Councillor Clark? Sorry, Councillor Clark. We'll hold off on the vote. Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Thank you. So, if Mr. Zagaric is here, the discussion that we were having about the Hamilton Waterfront Trust wasn't about the strategic plan. The discussion was about financial viability and are they a going concern? So while Hamilton Waterfront Trust is doing their strategic plan, can the city of Hamilton get an external audit to review their books and give us a pronouncement as to their viability or whether or not they are a going concern, or what would be needed in terms of investment to make them stable and viable?
Through the chair, I appreciate the question in that I apologize to committee. This was raised previously by Councillor Clark and I believe Councillor Wilson. And at the time, it was early in the calendar year in the midst of competing demands on staff, and we didn't feel we had the appropriate time and effort to complete that work. I can say, though, that staff have prepared a report, and that report will come forward. It was ready to come forward today, but it will come forward in May in conjunction with the representatives from Hamilton Waterfront Trust presenting to committee.
And I appreciate the staff providing a report. And I guess my question was, there seems to be constant controversy with regards to the trust. And so my question was about getting a third-party auditor to review the books from the standpoint of viability.
So through the chair, that is an opportunity that committee has. It may be through the presentation of the staff report that committee may wish to proceed with a deeper dive in terms of the financial performance of the trust, in that the staff report will identify some challenges as relates to the financial viability and performance of the trust. And at that time, if it's the desire of committee to provide staff some direction to engage a third party to do a deeper dive, is we can take that direction.
And I think that's a good suggestion, Madam Chair. So can I just ask staff, or can we ask staff, that they be prepared to discuss the options for verifying the viability of the organization when you come back in May? Does that make sense, Madam Chair, to Mr. Zagaric?
Yeah. So through the chair, if I've interpreted the comment correctly, we can put our minds to a scope of work and be able to speak to that in May.
And include in that commentary, if I may, Madam Chair, do we go to a third-party audit? Because right now we're kind of partners in this Hamilton and the Waterfront Trust. And so whatever one side is saying, if the other side isn't in agreement, then there's this dispute. So my mindset was a third party to review it so that we get very clear indication as to what's going on.
So through the chair, if I can, I would strongly agree with that suggestion in that it would show the independence of the review, and as well, we do not necessarily have that expertise. And so to engage a third party that has the expertise and who can interact with all parties and be independent, there are many merits to that approach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll leave it without giving direction. Mr. Zagaric seems to know exactly what he's planning on coming forward with in May. If we get this report about how we can verify the viability of the organization on a go-forward basis, what do we need to do to make them viable on a go-forward basis? That will provide the committee and council a lot of information. So I'm happy to wait until May when the staff report comes back. Thank you, through you, to Mr. Zagaric. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zagaric. Thank you, Councillor Clark, and I'm sure you will keep that on the radar as well. Councillor Ferguson, to this item, sir. Can't hear you.
I think we might have a bigger problem that they won't show up. I think, and the clerks, Angela probably knows better than I do, but I remember last year having them cancel just before they were supposed to come in for a variety of reasons. So through you, if I can, Madam Clerk, to Angela, do you know how many times we've asked them to come in the last year and they weren't able to come the last minute?
So through the chair, off the top of my head, I would say 2 or 3, but I could definitely look back and give you an exact number.
Yeah, you may want to have that number ready when the report does come back. And Mike, you may want to put your mind to the fact that they may not come and have a recommendation ready for what we should do if they don't come. It might be the time then just send the auditor in, because as chair of this committee, it concerned me that they kept canceling on us right at the day of the meeting for a variety of reasons. Would we be able to do that if that happens again in May? Just go straight to the external audit?
So through the chair, there is a deed involving the trust in the city of Hamilton. So we will revert to the deed and the language in the deed as it relates to what recourse the city has if Hamilton Waterfront Trust does not satisfy the requirements of the deed.
And one of the requirements of the deed, they must report annually to us?
Yes, through the chair, one of the requirements of the deed is providing the audited financial statements, a 10-year capital plan, a strategic plan, and any changes as it relates to their governance model.
Okay, I just want to, I agree with Councillor Clark. We need a third party on this one because it does seem to we circle the wagons and shoot in, and so we need to be ready to deal with them not coming again, and be ready with the recommendation of going to a third party to try to get a resolution on this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. So we did have a mover and a seconder. I'm sorry, Councillor Powers. Sorry, sir, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just building on what Councillor Clark and Ferguson has indicated, my question, just remind me what financial statement for what year end do we actually have on hand for you to take a look at? Through you to Mr. Zagaric, please.
Through the chair, the Hamilton Waterfront Trust did share their audited 2020 financial statements. Those would have been the last available financial statements, similar to the City of Hamilton, as we're just finalizing 2021. I would expect, I believe past experience has been the trust finalizes their fiscal year end, I believe in the third quarter of the year. So we would expect their 2021 audited financial statements in the fourth quarter of 2022.
Okay, so I depend upon your expertise and your leadership on this. My concern is putting it off to May we'll end up clustering the financial situation. In other words, the review of the financial statements with the strategic plan. So yes, there is a relevance between the two of them. My preference, this is just my preference, is that we get an analysis of the 2020 financial statements next month from you on our agenda. And then in the May meeting is we receive the 2021 from them and talk about the strat plan. So I just find that May meeting will probably get really clustered with discussions. Yes, we'll sort it out and delineate it, but if we can get ahead of the curve, then that would be helpful. That's just a suggestion. I'm not giving any direction, just a suggestion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Just suggestions and things to mull over. Thank you, sir. So no further speakers. I'm sorry, Councillor Vanderbeek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just further to what Councillor Powers said, and further to my colleague Councillor Clark, I feel quite strongly that there is definitely a need for some stewardship here, and I am wondering whether, although Councillor Powers didn't voice moving forward with any kind of direction, I'm wondering whether we should put them on notice that we will be looking to have a third party look over at least their 2020 books. I'm certainly grateful for what staff are able to do. But we already know that that Mr. Zagaric said that they're not really qualified to do an actual audit. There's been a fair amount of consternation in the public about the Waterfront Trust for some time, and I agree that a strategic plan is great if you are sustainable. So I guess what I would like to do is suggest that we receive this and that that we let them know, and I don't even know how to word this appropriately, so I'm going to lead on the clerk to help. But I think that we do need to put people, not only the Waterfront Trust, but the public on notice that we are planning to move forward to verify sustainability so that we can resolve something here. And I don't think that we should be waiting too long to do that, because, as we all know, this is a short year for action and resolution, and because of the election. And so I'm wondering whether or not there's a way to do that today while we're receiving their notice that they won't be here or that they're working on a strategic plan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. No, I have Councillor Wilson first time. No, sorry. And I have Councillor Powers. Oh, sorry, Councillor Clark second time, and then Councillor Powers. Thank you, Councillor Clark.
So I'm up then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So to Mr. Zagaric, Madam Chair, could we not move a motion today as the committee that has this body reporting to them that we have a third party audit review? I'm not sure the terminology is not a full audit, but it's to review the financial statements and inform the city as to any issues with regards to viability. Not sure if I'm wording that correctly, Madam Chair.
So through the chair, if I could ask the councillor, apologize for a question to the question. Is the intent, councillor, to request that the Waterfront Trust expand their audit to include the financial strength of the organization on a go-forward basis, or is the intent for the city to engage a firm to measure the financial strength of the organization on a go-forward basis?
That's an excellent question, Madam Chair. The latter would be my preference, and my rationale would be that as far as I understand, the city and the Waterfront Trust have a memorandum of understanding or a business agreement, something to that effect. And so if we're wanting to really understand and have the numbers accepted by the broader public, it would be an independent third party that would do the work, given that there would be cynics on both sides if it was done by the city or if it was done by Waterfront Trust.
So through the chair, we could develop a scope of work for a third party who would have to rely on the Waterfront Trust for information to do that assessment in terms of the financial strength of the organization on a go-forward basis. So if the motion were to be for staff to draft that scope of work, we could come back in April with that scope of work. And then if it's approved by committee, we can then engage Hamilton Waterfront Trust as to how to proceed with that work in conjunction with the trust.
I think that's prudent. So if we were to direct staff to go out and come back with a report in terms of how we would have a third party review of this, their financial statements, then we could move that formally in April and get the ball rolling so we understand what's happening prior to them coming back with their strat plan. Hoping that makes sense to everyone. So do I move that motion to direct staff to develop a scope of work and come back for the next meeting?
I'm going to suggest that can be put on the floor as a motion, but I have Councillor Powers and Councillor Ferguson first time and second time, Councillor Powers and Councillor Ferguson speakers. So I can come back to you, Councillor.
That's fine.
Okay. If I can, who's the vice chair? Madam Clerk, sorry.
Me.
Councillor Vanderbeek, just real quick. So my question just would be aside to Councillor Clark is who would be responsible to pay for that report and study? And I'm assuming it's the 2020 figures because we haven't got the 2021, correct? So I'll just leave that with you.
Yeah. So with respect to who would be responsible financially to cover the associated costs, I'd have to look at the deed to see whether or not the deed makes any reference as it relates to audits, who has financial responsibility. And with respect to the scope of work, I'll try to be very clear with my preliminary thoughts on the scope of work. I would suggest that has to extend beyond their 2020 financial statements. Absolutely, their audited 2020 financial statements must be within scope. But I believe the interest of committee, if I've interpreted it correctly today, is on a go-forward basis. So beyond 2020, how does the trust see themselves in terms of financial performance as an independent, viable entity?
Okay, thank you. I have now Councillor Wilson, first time.
Thank you, Chairperson. Appreciate this discussion. It's been ongoing for some time. I admit to my frustration. But just on the point that Mr. Zagarek just made in terms of the objectives to be served and therefore the scope to be followed, if the objective is to assess the financial well-being and wholesomeness of the trust going forward, I would assume, and I'm looking for yay or nay from Mr. Zagarek, we would not only need to look at the 2020, we would also have to look back in order to assess how they're going to move forward. So where have been their points of revenue and where have been their places of expenditure? What has been their output in accordance with those actions, and where do they? We're looking, I think, for trends, and that will be further informed by what they intend to do in the future, I suppose, and whether this committee's responsibility is or not to say, well, in accordance with what we've been seeing, we're challenged in understanding how you're going to achieve those strategic objectives. But I'm looking to Mr. Zager for confirmation on that scope, whether it would just be beyond 2020. It would have to go back, I would assume, or not. Thank you.
So through the chair, I would say to Councillor Wilson's question, it will be somewhat rear view mirror in that the external entity would have to look at their financial performance in the past and their financial diversity, how they've financially supported the organization and their work. And then taking that information into consideration is, again, the trust is expected to prepare business plans and a strategic plan and a 10-year capital plan. So forward-looking is how does the trust see its ability to execute on all of that work, and in conjunction with the work is the financial requirements to deliver that work.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I now have Councillor Powers and then Councillor Ferguson.
And thank you very much. Look, great points raised by everyone. So this just my thinking in keeping with the intentions of Councillor Clark and others is that maybe in April, the report that comes back does I'm going to call it a cursory analysis of the 2020 financial statement that's there, what we know about the organization, and also outline the process that we would, there's been a lot of questions about, engaging third party, an audit of this, who pays the cost, maybe get an information report that can turn into direction next month. And that preps us for those discussions in May. But at least we've got that part of it out of the way. And then when if and when we give direction to Mr. Zakaric and his staff to fully engage on this particular item, we've got a number of the items out of the way. So I'm just thinking is that we can deal with a good chunk of these things in our April meeting and prepare for that presentation in detail with the trust in May when they've indicated they want to come back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple things. I just don't want us to appear to be piling on. I know we have cause for it, but if the report coming back in April is simply an information report, as Councillor Powers suggested, saying if you want to move forward, here's could be the terms of reference. I'm okay with that part. I think what's missing so far has either Mr. Zakaric or our chair met with the chair of the Waterfront Trust rather than trying to deal with the staff, because clearly, as I said earlier, I'm concerned that they don't come. So is Jason Farr still the chair of the Waterfront Trust? Does anybody know?
So through the chair, I don't believe that any city elected officials who sit on the trust are chair. I believe it is a citizen appointee that is chair.
Yeah, it was Bob Charters for years, but I thought he stepped down and Jason took on the chair about a year ago. But I would like someone to reach out to the chair and say, why aren't you coming in? Where's your financial statements? And, once Angela gets the exact number, if it's only once they've said, but I think it's more than once, it's either 2 or 3 as she suggested. I'd like to know that, but I'd like to know the reaction from the chair that we have our eyebrows raised and some pushback from the community, and why aren't you coming in, and get their reaction. So that's the first thing I'd like to see done. And secondly, I'd like to see another formal invitation out to the executive director that you've missed X number of opportunities to come before us. We're asking that you appear at the first audit and finance meeting in April for your annual report. If we could put that request out too, so we can see what happens at the same time we're receiving the scope of an external audit. Would that be possible?
So through the,
Anything?
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, through the chair is we can work with clerks. I would recommend just respecting the governance between the two organizations. It's probably best that come from clerks on behalf of this committee to the board chair, just respecting the governance and the role of the board chair.
Yeah, that sounds fine. So just a letter out to from clerks, from Angela out to or Maria out to them, requesting them appear at the first meeting in April. So we give them another opportunity, and they can't accuse us of piling on then. But also, can we find out who the chair of the board is and have Mike and Maria meet with them to get sorry, I shouldn't use the chair and the general manager, meet with him and get his take on what's happening?
Angela, the Madam Clerk has that information, Councillor.
Should we invite him to the next, whoever that person is, to the next meeting also?
Let her answer your question first.
So through the chair, Trent Jarvis, the correspondence is from Trent Jarvis today. He is the chair of the
Okay.
Board of Trustees.
So he's in the loop then.
The council's City of Hamilton representatives are Jason Farr, Councillor Jason Farr, Councillor Judy Partridge, and Councillor Esther Pauls.
Okay. Okay, so you may want to meet, I was hoping it was Jason, but you may want to meet with the current chair. And I don't know whether you need direction on that or not, but that would be my choice, to get the reaction from the person who's really in charge, which is the head of the board. So I'll leave that for my colleagues to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the previous speaker's comments. I'm afraid I'm not comfortable with them, though. We're discussing this in a public body, and the intent is to, as public entities, to have full disclosure. I think our communication has to be formal and the discussions have to be public. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back now. I have no further speakers. Councillor Clark, you have a motion moved by yourself and seconded by Councillor Vanderbeek. Correct? Yeah.
Do you have something written, Madam Clerk?
I do, through the chair. I have that the correspondence from Trent Jarvis Hamilton Waterfront Trust respecting the update to the AFNA in April or May of 2002 be received, and that staff be directed to develop a scope of work and report back to the Audit Finance Administration Committee on April 21st on an independent third-party audit review to verify the financial strength of the Hamilton Waterfront Trust on a going forward basis.
And I guess the third party respecting Councillor Ferguson is to invite the chair to that meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's been moved and seconded. Councillor Ferguson to the motion.
Yeah, just could you add also that the executive director be asked once again to attend the next meeting?
Agreed.
Is the mover okay with that?
Yes, he says he is. Thank you. That's being added, sir. Okay. So with that, we have the motion on the floor, duly moved and seconded. All in favor? Give Madam Clerk, just take your time, Madam Clerk. Thank you. And that was a thumbs up for Councillor Powers and Councillor Brenda Johnson. And that carries 7-0. So we're going to move on now to communication items. 5.1 and 5.2 were removed, if I remember correctly. Just a second. Am I wrong? No, a second.
I think, Madam Chair, we just dealt with 5.1 and 5.2.
We just dealt with that. That's right. So we only moved 5.2 because we did move the motion on 5.1, Madam Clerk, correct? Yes. Yes, thank you. That's what was confusing because we actually moved them separately. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move on now. We have no delegation requests, consent items. So we're going to go through 7.1 is advisory, about various advisory committee minutes that are before you. Any questions or comments? If I can just go through Councillor Powers, sir, on 7.1.
Could I suggest that we approve receipt of 7.1A through 7.1K inclusive? They are committee reports.
Yeah.
If we're prepared to consider that.
Perfect. Moved by Councillor Powers, second by Councillor Brenda Johnson to receive. Recorded vote, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Councillor Powers. That carries 7-0. We're going on to 7.2 is a report of the 2021 remuneration expenses as required under Section 284 of the Municipal Act, FCS 22008 citywide. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion to receive? Moved by Councillor Vanderbeek, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. All in favor? Carry 7-0. 7.3 is 2021 fourth quarter request for tenders and proposals report, FCS 21008C. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, motion moved by Councillor Wilson. Did you have a question to Councillor Wilson? Thank you. And seconded by, to put it on the floor, Councillor Vanderbeek. Thank you. Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. On 7.3, forgive me, I'm just, I believe in Appendix A of 7.3, Ward 1 question for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson, I can barely hear you.
Sorry, there's a, sorry, Chair. Appendix A on 7.3, there is on page 7, reference to Longwood Bridge, which goes over Highway 403. And there's a notation that none of the bids came in within scope. And I was wondering if someone could just put that in context for me in terms of both the scope of the work and what happens when that happens. Thank you.
Good morning. Tina's here to join us.
Through the chair, good morning. I'm not familiar with the outcome of that particular tender, but what normally happens is when a procurement process isn't successful, we work with the client group to determine if the specifications need to be changed, and therefore we would reissue a request for tenders, or the project gets canceled as a whole. There's a various number of steps that we go through. So this one looks like a new request for tenders with revised specifications was to be issued in first quarter of 2022. So it looks like the client department's going to look at their requirements and then we'll reissue that tender. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure if that tender has been issued, but I can follow up and then send you an email to that effect if you wish.
Thank you, Chair. I would appreciate that, and I'll follow up with road staff as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So it's been moved. Councillor Powers on the report.
So this is just a general ask, is in some of these, the report 7.2 through 7.4, no, not necessarily 7.4, yet some of them, they go in very much detail with regards to capital works projects and that. If you could add the ward identifiers, obviously the councillors are aware of what work is being contemplated in their particular areas, but just for general information of the public, if they could just add a column as to which ward it might fall into, it would be helpful and an easy identifier, not only for the public, for ourselves at first glance. Just a general ask, but I have absolutely no problems with the details in this report or the other reports. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you to that, Tina. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I could just, Councillor, if I could just ask for clarification. So which reports was it, and was it in the report or the appendice to the report?
It would be in the appendices. So the attached appendices, at a quick glance, you can see these particular things for not only the public but the councillors impacted.
Okay, we will do our best to do that for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in that, I have a mover in Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Powers. All in favor? Councillor Clark, question to that, sir? Sorry, before we vote.
That's okay. I'm getting used to this new system. So on page 404 of the Appendix A, the last two lines, so this is the fourth quarter emergency and non-competitive procurement report. One of them is $1.25 million for Supershine Janitorial Services Limited. And then Fairway Electrical was $779,000. So I'm trying to understand what those were and how they fell into an emergency and non-competitive procurement at such a high expense.
Tina?
So through the chair, I can, if you just bear with me for a second, I'm just trying to pull up these reports. Okay, so the Supershine Janitorial Services, so that is for the janitorial, and that's a corporate contract for the entire city. We have had to bridge the current contract to the new contract, so we've been under an extension policy to that extent, and janitorial services, I'm sure you can appreciate, are quite expensive because it is a very large contract. So we needed to add 1.25 million to the Supershine janitorial services because I believe there's a number of facilities on there, and it would have been for a fairly long period of time. With respect to Fairway was an emergency, and that was for, as per page 2 on the report, for generator rental, maintenance, and generator fuel supply to keep operations going at the material recycling facility as a result of severe damage to the underground feed cables due to arcing and tracking. Due to the extent of the damage, a temporary generator was installed until the repairs were completed. So that's the information that we've been provided by the client group. I'm not sure if there's anyone else on the call that can speak to both of those items, but if you wish more information, again, I can reach out to the client group.
Yeah, I'm still trying to understand how such a significant increase on janitorial services came through this type of process rather than a competitive process. But we can take that conversation offline, Tina, instead of boring everyone here today with it.
Through the chair. It's not boring. This information, this is quite a large contract, but I will look into it and try and get you additional details.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's my last question. Thank you.
Sir Wilson, did you have a question? No? Yes? Madam Clerk?
So I believe Councillor Clark's questions were on item 7.4. I canceled the vote on 7.3 because I thought his question was on 7.3. So we will have to vote on both 7.3 and 7.4.
Thank you. We were just at 7.3, correct?
I have a mover and seconder on 7.3, but we have not voted on it yet.
Correct. Thank you. And that mover was Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Powers, correct? Thank you. Everyone, please vote. So 7.3, please. Thank you. And that carries 7-0. We're now on 7.4, and I believe, is that what you're saying, Madam Clerk? Is that the comments Councillor Clark had are referring to item 7.4? So for Tina's information, she was probably bouncing back and forth trying to find it. But on item 7.4, any questions or comments, concerns? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I do. I just recall when we were in discussions about the operating budget, one of my colleagues referenced this item within the context of it, saying it was on the Hamilton Police Service capital budget for quite some time. And so I'm just wondering if that is the case, on page 3 of Appendix A for 7.4, why the hovercraft would be a non-competitive or emergency procurement for $149,000. Is it is anyone able to speak to that? Is it because of the uniqueness of the product or the purchase? Thank you.
Tina?
I'm not up to speed on that. Oh, sorry, through the chair. I don't have that particular information at the moment, but again, Councillor, I can try to pull up policy 11 if I can. If you bear with me for a second. I don't want to waste everyone's time. So through the chair, I could come back to Councillor Wilson and give you a more detailed information on that, on the hovercraft.
See, I think Jeanette Smith has her hand up. Did you wish to speak, Jeanette?
Thank you for recognizing me, Chair Pearson. I'm noticing a bit of a trend, so if I can offer a solution so Tina doesn't get put on the spot, that for particularly the emergency or non-compliant or non-competitive procurements, when these reports come forward, that we can work to have the relevant directors or managers at this meeting so we're able to answer your questions, and so there isn't as much follow-up after.
Thank you for that, but we're still, so Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
No, thank you. I would appreciate that, that structural issue and the follow-up from, if possible, on my question. Thank you, Chair.
So may I have a mover and a seconder then on item 7.4? That's the 2021 fourth quarter emergency and non-competitive procurement report, FCS21009C citywide. Moved by Councillor Power, second by Councillor Ferguson. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just a comment on the Fairway Electric. I don't know why I know this, but I probably got it from Rome. Is that Fairway has the contract to do every building to do an inspection on the electrical service. And during the inspection of the recycling facility, they found very serious shorts happening underground. And so they instructed them to go ahead and repair them on the spot. And they had to rent generators to keep running the facility until such time as those cables could be replaced. But it was found during a routine inspection of the electrical, which is an annual requirement that we do. And it was an emergency to get this thing and keep it going so we could keep our recycling facility proceeding. Just information.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Clark. Thank you for that. Thanks you for that as well. So, Madam Clerk, we can put the vote up, please. Thank you. On to 7.5 is the 2021 fourth quarter non-compliance. Sorry, that vote carries. 7.5, 2021 fourth quarter non-compliance with procurement policy report FCS21010C. Any questions or comments? If not, may I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Brenda Johnson, second by Councillor Vanderbeek. Councillor Powers is a thumbs up. I believe, Councillor, you got it. Okay. 7-0. Thank you. 7.6 is the annual tax arrears as of December 31, 2021. FCS 22011 citywide. Any questions or comments? Councillor Wilson. Got ice in the back of my head.
Thank you very much. I think this is an important report for public consumption, certainly. And if I could, through the chair, ask Mr. Zagarek or a member of his staff just to provide an overview. I note in advance that we have the lowest record of tax arrears in the last over the last 5 years, and the highest level of home sales interestingly. So if I could just ask staff to provide a quick overview of that. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I could ask Maria DeSanto if she can provide a bit of a summary to the report that's before you.
Morning, Maria.
Thanks, Maria.
Good morning, Maria DeSanto, Manager of Taxation. Through the chair, yes, so the arrears have gone down, and not to say that the total result of that is because of sales, but sales have significantly increased. And usually when there is a sale, the lawyers order tax certificates and settle arrears, if any. So due to the significant amount of sales, I think it went up about compared to about 2,500 more compared to last year. I think it's safe to say that if any of those had arrears, they would have cleared those. So I believe, again, it's not the full reason, but the large sales do contribute. We do see arrears being cleared at the time of sale.
Thank you. So I know beyond the scope of this, but I think that was really, I was very interested when I read that, because one could speculate whether the volume of home sales and the clearance of arrears that are forced in the sale at the point of transfer are a consequence of something that the broader council, of course, is dealing with. And is that one of housing as a commodity and or the affordability of housing and people having to sell as a consequence? So to that, to Ms. DeSantis, does the corporation keep a geographic spread of where those sales are taking place? So could you, like, if we looked at a map of the sales, or would we be able to see whether they're concentrated in one place or another? Thank you.
Through the chair, no, we don't. So we do record sales we see in our tax billing software where we change ownership, but we don't have any method right now to then plot that on a map to see exactly where those are taking place.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. With that, then I'll have Councillor Powers.
Mine is just a compliment. I want to not only this is a I'm going to say it's a good report. It's a very, very promising report, and I commend the staff, and I commend previous councils for putting in place kind of the rules, the ability to work with the residents in order to deal with the situations and understand circumstances and get on top of things. So it's a blend of flexibility, but at the same time being very stringent in the way that we need to proceed. So this is a good news report, as good as you can get from the standpoint of tax reviewers. So I commend it, and I certainly support the report. And Maria and her staff, thank you very much.
Well said, Councillor, and ditto. So I'm going to ask Councillor Powers to move that. Councillor Wilson to second it, please. Recorded vote. Councillor Powers is his thumbs up. Hard to miss it on the big screen. 7-0. Thank you, everyone. We're going to 7-7 is the annual assessment appeals as of December 31, 2020. A mover and a seconder. No questions, comments. Moved by Councillor Vanderbeek, seconded by Councillor Brenda Johnson. All in favor? Oh, who had a question? Councillor Johnson has a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask the staff to give us a brief overview for this one? We've always had our eye on the ball about all the golf courses and anybody who appeals. So is there anything outstanding right now, Mike or Brian?
Through the chair, there are still properties that have appealed and that are still outstanding, haven't been settled. What you'll see in the report that's before you, and again, I'll lean on Maria to provide a bit more detail, but what you see in the report that's before you is the financial impacts reflect settlements that relate to multi-years. So these just aren't as it relates to 2020 assessment appeals. Some of these are aged assessment appeals. And this council and previous councils have put resolutions asking MPAC and Assessment Review Board to try to arrive at some approach that resolves that uncertainty for municipalities. As you can appreciate, having 6 years of outstanding settlements creates some challenges as to how to budget for that. What assumptions do we make as a municipality as to the impact of those settlements as we have to budget for those? The one trend that you've heard me highlight in the past and what you've seen very materially, I believe $15 million, is in the large commercial, so the big box stores. And this is not unique to the City of Hamilton. This is province-wide, and this has been ongoing for some time now. The big box stores have argued in terms of their financial viability as it relates to the margins on the goods and services that they're having to provide. And I expect e-commerce is one of the contributing factors. So that continues to be a province-wide issue. And it was a very, very material impact for us in the report that's before you. And again, that was a multi-year settlement as well. So not just one year. So just highlighting that specific sector. And not sure if Maria just wants to highlight any other findings or content in the report that's before you.
Morning, Maria. Thank you. Through you, Chair.
Through the chair, yeah. So typically the obviously the significant appeals that continue are in the commercial industrial. So as Mike Sagaric mentioned, the large shopping centers, the big box, retail properties, and industrial. So typically when they file the appeal, because some of these take multiple years, the year that the appeal is settled is the year that we take the hit. So in 2021, we processed a significant amount of appeals. That's where you see the larger than typical impact of about 15.8 million. A result of that, I think, could be also driven because the ARB, the Assessment Review Board, shortened some of the streams to try to deal with some of this backlog in 2021. And we do, as you, there's a number of appeals that were processed in 2021 that actually go back to 2009. So when you add so much per year over a number of years, it does become quite significant.
Retroactive is fun. So Maria or Mike, last question through you, Chair. I know that this has been an ongoing war and we've been winning some battles, we've been losing some battles. How are we doing overall?
So through the chair, the appeals that were settled in 2021, unfortunately, a lot of those would be ones where the city wasn't actively participating in. We are now, council has approved our active participation. So we would be now participating in similar appeals moving forward. So I don't have an answer as far as how we're doing right now, because we're just now getting involved in the appeals. There's an Appendix A to the report that lists the number of appeals that we are actively participating in. Significant potential municipal tax dollar loss. Now, again, these do take a number of years to conclude. So we will be reporting on this annually, but unfortunately, we won't be able to give you a snapshot right now. They're all pretty much in the early stages of them.
Thank you, Maria. It's good to see you this morning. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And Councillor Wilson, or Councillor Ferguson, my apologies.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Maria, is it possible for you to put the year the appeal was filed? It would be interesting to see that, how long it's taken to get processed.
Through the chair, yes, we could do that. We will be reporting again this annually, so we could add the year that the appeal was filed.
And I assume you can't put the name on it because of privacy issues, is it?
Yeah, we stick to just the property address and the type of property. And as you can see, the majority are commercial industrial.
Yeah, so I take it that the big one there for $6 million, which is 40% of the $15 million, is probably Lime Ridge Mall, looking at that that address. And that's a huge one. And it's almost as bad as Stokoe was when won an appeal. So thanks for the report. And I just want to also reiterate what Councillor Powers said. I think, Maria, you're doing an amazing job for us. Every time I get a tax complaint, I just flip it to you and you have an answer within 24 hours. So you're doing a great service to the city, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Appreciate that. And I see Councillor Johnson had a thumbs up. I think we would all have thumbs up. Thank you. So with that, we have report item 7.7. I'm going to ask moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Ferguson. All in favor? I haven't seen, no. If you're out there, Councillor Powers, we don't see you. Oh, there he is. Thank you. It wasn't yellow. Okay. That carries 7-0. 7.8, support for the National Council of Canadian Muslims brought forward by the NCCM recommendations in motion 6.2 CM21015A. This is out from the outstanding business list. And I think that's, yep. So I knew I'd have speakers. Thank you. On that item, Councillor Clark, then, I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Clark. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If I could first off, it's an important item on the agenda. If I could ask probably Morgan Stahl if she could speak to it. Just a reminder of why it's on the outstanding business list and what action was taken in responding to the request. Thank you.
Is Morgan yes, good morning, Morgan. We can't hear you.
Oh, you'd think 2 years into this, I would know how to unmute myself. Sorry about that. Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, members of the council may recall the motion that was brought forward in collaboration with the National Council of Canadian Muslims back in August. There was a series of recommendations that they provided to both municipalities and the provincial and federal government about some areas that we could advocate and also fulfill community-based anti-Islamophobia initiatives. So as part of that, my department, Community Initiatives and Government Relations, was tasked with kind of, I think, a roster, a list of recommendations as to how we were supporting the Muslim community in Hamilton. And in December, we brought an information report back to General Issues Committee, which outlined some of those supports. And this is kind of the final piece of that original motion as well, which outlines some of the support that we are providing to Muslim youth through our youth strategy and through other mechanisms at the city. I'm also joined by my colleague, Sunil Angrish, who's on the call, and perhaps I'll defer to him just in terms of any other logistics or follow-up questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see if Sunil is there. There. Sorry, yes, Sunil. Good morning. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I'm wondering specifically in terms of the local initiatives taken, if Sunil or Ms. Stahl could speak, what will the relationship be then between the Anti-Racism Center and efforts to call out, respond to Islamophobia locally?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, Sunil Angrish, Project Manager, Community Inclusion and Equity. To the councillor's question, there certainly is a strong relationship between the work we are doing and the work that HARC is currently involved with. Obviously, there have been a number of events recently that are raising a lot of alarms. The attack at another mosque was very unfortunate. And certainly we have been having conversations with HARC and our other community partners, including No Hate in the Hammer, HCCI, and HIPSI, to see what other means and communications we can use to address these issues, and certainly work with community partners. And I do understand that the Office of the Mayor is still engaged with the representatives from MCCM, and those conversations are ongoing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I value the overview that was provided. I know all of my colleagues are deeply troubled and aghast at the not only hate that has always existed, but how it's being manifested and emboldened throughout our community. And it's really important for us to act as a community so that those who are subjected to hate do not feel alone. Clearly, we enunciate our civic values and act in unity in calling it out and working day in, day out to offer and demonstrate through our deeds, not just our words, that is not acceptable and it will not be tolerated in this city nor in this country. So thank you very much for this information report.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Thank you, Sunil. And Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is specifically to, what page is that? Page 2 of 5. And item number 58, municipalities dedicate specific funding for anti-Islamophobia public awareness campaigns. And so when I go through the report, that was a specific recommendation, and I see that we're joining 56 and 58 together, and we're basically saying or mentioning things that we have already done, as opposed to on a go-forward basis, what are we going to do? And so my question is, what are the communications plans to present an anti-Islamophobia public awareness campaign?
Through the chair to the councillor, those conversations are still ongoing, to be honest. Certainly through the hate mitigation action plan, there's a number of strategies that were outlined in the report that went to council, I believe, in December. And we are having conversations with our community partners in terms of what other means and tools we can use to address anti-Islamophobia here in Hamilton and really everywhere else as well. Some funding has been provided to our community partners, HARC, HCCI, among others, that obviously supports this work. But we are looking to develop more relationships and more work with community to really address some of the concerns outlined here. We wanted to provide some examples of the work that has already happened to sort of take inspiration from that in terms of a path forward.
Okay, so we're not claiming the past actions in terms of how we're moving forward, but the question still remains, item number 58 was very specific and this council agreed to it for the National Council of Canadian Muslims that we would have specific funding for anti-Islamophobia public awareness campaigns. So in my mind, Madam Chair, to me, that means small video PSAs that are playing on local TV, radio ads, web page ads, bus ads, all the things that we can utilize with our network for communications in Hamilton, promoting anti-Islamophobia. And I don't see that anywhere. So I'm trying to understand how we're going to be doing that. Like, that was all about communications, and I don't see anything here explaining here's how we're going to communicate anti-Islamophobia to the residents of Hamilton and encourage those who might have a hateful heart to loosen up.
Morgan?
Through the chair to Councillor Clark, if I may add, we have been in contact with the local representatives, the Hamilton chapter of the National Council of Canadian Muslims, as Sunil has suggested, and we have been working obviously through the mayor's office as well. There was an anti-Islamophobia task force that was created. So while we have not committed to specific dollars for the campaign, we have been working with the folks from equity seeking communities in order to support those efforts. We also identified some provincial and federal funds and let the folks at NCCM know that we would be willing to support that, perhaps a letter of support from the city or other mechanisms. We also flagged the opportunity through the City Enrichment Fund, and if there were any potential programs that the NCCM is running in order to ensure that the Muslim community does feel supported in Hamilton, that the City Enrichment Fund is another mechanism whereby NCCM could apply for funds from the City of Hamilton. So I think that perhaps just gives you a bit more context, Councillor Clark, as much as there isn't specific dollars allocated for a particular campaign. We have identified some other avenues, and those conversations are ongoing, as Sunil suggested.
I guess my frustration, Madam Chair, is that the council agreed that we would develop a local anti-Islamophobic public awareness campaign. That was back in August. And what we have presented today is the suggestion that the National Council of Canadian Muslims can apply through our city enrichment program. So from August until March, we haven't really done anything to promote anti-Islamophobia as per our agreement in August of last year. So I'm a little bit disturbed that there's been no movement. And this report talks about everything that we've already done, which we knew about back in August. And yet we made a commitment to do more. So I guess I'm looking to the city manager. How do we reconcile this? How do we get this matter moving? We're supposed to develop that communications campaign. We agreed to do that, but we have not.
Through the chair, thank you for pointing that out, Councillor Clark. I think what I would recommend that there's a gap, that I definitely want that communication campaign to be developed in partnership with the Muslim community. And so staff can make that a priority and sit down with them and get advice, obviously, from communications on what that would look like. Bring it back to this committee, identifying the resources required to do that. And it may be there's channels that we have available already that there's not extra. There may be some paid communications that we want, and we'll bring that back. Morgan, I don't know if you can identify from your work on this a time frame for that.
I think we can reach out to the folks that we have relationships with from the Muslim community and perhaps come back to this committee in the latter half of April, just to report back on what that would look like. We can also work with Hamilton Anti-Racism Resource Center to determine if they have any work underway that is within alignment as well. I do want to speak to the work that has happened between August and now, because I think there have been substantial conversations and relationship building, and through the hate mitigation, prevention, and community initiatives action plan. There has been a willingness, obviously, to work with equity-seeking communities and continue to build that relationship, and also provide additional support. So there's been a number of conversations, of course, with that community, with the Office of the Mayor. We brought back a report in December to General Issues Committee, which outlined some of the other work that has been underway as well. So I do want to acknowledge that there has been a relationship building aspect to this, but also building out the hate mitigation and community initiatives action plan, with, of course, the reestablishment of HARC. So these are conversations that continue. There are conversations where the city sits at tables like No Hate in the Hammer. There are things like the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan that is underway through Healthy and Safe Communities, and there is a pillar dedicated to combating hate. So these are conversations that staff at the city are having quite frequently, and it is ongoing work. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, or Madam Chair. I don't dispute the efforts that we have gone through in the last 3 years with regards to hate in the city of Hamilton. And the issue at hand is that we've agreed to develop some type of anti-Islamophobic public awareness campaign, but we have not done that. And instead, what we have is a report here that is pointing to a number of successes in the past that we have done. And so my suggestion is we have to meet the commitment that we made. If we stood up and voted in favor that there be a report back on local anti-Islamophobic public awareness campaigns, and we develop such a campaign, then we need to ensure that that work is being done. And so I'm not sure how we proceed here, Madam Clerk. In my mind, this report should be referred back to staff so that they can actually deal with that one item, modify the report in terms of how they're coming forward, and bring it back to us sometime in April. Does that make sense to the city manager and the city clerk, Madam? Keep promoting you, Madam Deputy Mayor. If only you had the extra pay, right?
Morgan?
Through the chair to Councillor Clark, we can commit to bringing back this report with an outline of how we would resource the public awareness campaign, and also bring back some additional information as to what that would look like in terms of dollars or support to the National Council of Canadian Muslim if they have a campaign underway.
That would be excellent in my opinion. Thank you.
And I saw Councillor Powers, and it's the first time. Yes, Councillor Powers.
Just building on what the Councillor Clark has indicated, and the offer that's made, I think we could receive this as an information, but request, as Morgan's indicated, is request an action report be brought back to this committee no later than our May meeting to action the direction on how should we say, the suppositions and the statements that are made into this report. So I think something, Councillor Clark, something that's concise and a request for action returned to us in a reasonable period of time, being no later than the May AFNA meeting. Just my suggestion. Thank you.
I'm seeing Councillor Clark nod his head. Councillor Wilson.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I just, if I could, I'll relinquish the chair to Councillor Vanderbeek. Just a comment, because I want to be sure we're on the same lines. Councillor Clark is recommending what initiatives we're going to take. And if Morgan's there, what we're going to take as a city as public announcements, et cetera. And that's not what I heard Morgan say she's going to come back with. So could you please clarify, Morgan? Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to council, I believe we're talking about the same thing. The line 58, which is municipalities dedicate specific funding for anti-Islamophobia public awareness campaigns. So long as if I'm on the right track, then that's what I intend to bring back to this council, is a report on what that would look like in terms of that specific funding for the public awareness campaigns, and how we could work with our partners like HARC, No Hate in the Hammer, HCCI, to bring back some information to this council that would outline a collaborative approach to that specific funding for the anti-Islamophobia public awareness campaigns.
Okay, so again, I'm hearing it's funding, though. We're not going to be doing the advertising. That's what I'm confused. I just want to be sure. Are we going to be presenting ways that, public service announcements, billboards, placards in the bus shelters, et cetera? That's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that we're working to fund them, and they will do it. I just want to be sure there's not a confusion, Councillor Clark. I apologize, but I just want to be sure there's not a confusion.
So if I may, we have already made a commitment to the National Council that the Director of Government Relations and Community Engagement be directed to report back to the Audit, Finance, and Administration Committee on local anti-Islamophobic public awareness campaigns. And the commitment from the National Council was that the city develop those local campaigns. Literally, the language they use is the municipality dedicates specific funding for anti-Islamophobic public awareness campaign. Doesn't say how big the campaign is, it doesn't say how long. It could be a summer campaign annually, but we've agreed to some type of campaign. So we need to flesh that out, and maybe they can come back with different options on how it works and talk to the other committees for their support on it. But ultimately, in my mind, and when we supported this, I envisioned some type of anti-Islamophobic public awareness campaign where you would have the different groups. For example, HARC, the City of Hamilton, No Hate in the Hammer, HCCI, and any other groups that are helping us with this type of messaging, and that it would be collaborative. And then it could be, like I say, you could do it on Cable 14, which hits an awful lot of people. And you can talk to the radio stations about developing a PSA that's at no cost to the City of Hamilton, because we're doing it for the goodwill of the entire city. Those are the things that I envision 58 is all about, and I believe Morgan has that understanding of where we want to go.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Clark, I have that understanding as well. Perhaps, sorry if there was a miscommunication in my language. I just want to ensure that those community organizations and the equity-seeking groups are the ones really dictating how this campaign looks, and wanted to emphasize that collaborative approach. So I apologize if there was any error in my language or communication, but I believe we're on the same page.
Nothing to apologize, Morgan. I just want to be sure when we leave this room, we're all on the same page as well. So not to worry.
No, I agree with exactly what Morgan is proposing, and yep. So we'll come back in April and we'll review what they've done.
So a mover and a seconder, and Councillor on your motion, Councillor Clark, on your direction.
I think we need to have.
We're going to receive this. I think under Councillor Power's suggestions that we receive this information report, or what did you wish to refer it, Councillor Clark?
I think Councillor Powers had indicated, and I thought his suggestion was valid, that we receive the report, but we add an action item, I think was the language that he used.
So through the chair, I have, and you can correct me if this is incorrect, that report CM 21015A respecting support for the National Council of Canadian Muslims brought forward by the NCCM recommendations in motion 6.2 be received, and that staff be directed to develop a communication plan for the Anti-Islamophobia public awareness campaign with the collaboration from the Muslim community and the Hamilton Anti-Racism Resource Center, along with identifying resources available for this plan, and report back to the May 5th AFNA meeting.
I think that's bang on.
Wow. Thank you. Very good job. Thank you. So moved by Councillor Clark, second by Councillor Powers. Thank you. Recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you, Morgan, if you're out there still. So with that, we're done all the consent items. We're now going to move on to, we have no staff presentations, we have no public hearings or delegations. Item 10 is discussion items. 10.1 is accounts receivable write-offs for 2021. I see you, Councillor Powers. FCS 22009. May I have a mover and a second to put on the floor? Councillor Powers, second by Councillor Ferguson. And Councillor Powers, you have a question.
Thank you very much. I support the detail in the report. I just have a couple of questions with regards to the charts that's in there, and if staff is here. On page 137, it's a substantial number of finance charges, and they're indicated they're being written off because of finance charges. Could I get an explanation of that? Is just because we penalized for slow payment and that, and they challenged it, and we decided. Sorry, rather than me trying to interpret it, could I get clarity on that, please?
So through you, Chair, I'll start, and then I'm going to ask Bev Neal, the author of the report, if she can provide some specific details. Financial charges may relate to when the city and a vendor are in dispute as it relates to an invoice, and there may be some back and forth, and over that period of time, financial charges accrue. That's an example as to how these financial charges are realized. And Bev, I'll invite Bev, and she can provide a little more detail. Just to be fair and balanced, and as it relates to this report, I do want to share with committee that the City of Hamilton also does not pay financial charges when we find ourselves in a similar situation where we are in negotiations over an invoice. But again, for the most part, these may be tied to where an invoice is in dispute, and the financial charges accrue until such time as there's resolution as it relates to that invoice.
Okay, that's fine. I don't need anything more on that particular one. On page 139, I see there's a non-collectible amount of $78,757.04 from Union Gas. Could I get an explanation on that one, please?
So through you, Chair, I will turn to Bev or the appropriate staff if the appropriate staff are available. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. This is a Union Gas item that we billed for in July of 2018, and have been trying to collect. The vendor, Union Gas, is saying that the full charges shouldn't be billed to them. There's other utility companies in place, but we have, I believe, Robin Pollard is here from Public Works that will be able to provide more details on it. Robin?
I'd welcome that. Thank you.
Yes, hi, Robin Pollard from Forestry and Horticulture and the manager. This being a 2018 invoice, I've asked Sam Gargarello to be on the call, and I'm hoping he can provide a good analysis on this one.
Good morning, all. Through you, Chair. As a project manager on the Cage Park Tropical Greenhouse, in approximately September 2018, we were supposed to have a new Union Gas line installed from Gage Avenue to the greenhouse, and Union Gas was somewhat delinquent in getting their new gas line. installed. So we had to rent a temporary generator and supply it with diesel fuel to make sure that the production greenhouse was still up and running with heat. And Union Gas, through their lack of design and being able to install the gas line on time, that is the cost that we incurred on the construction project. And we tried to recoup it through Union Gas.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Very, very detailed explanation. I accept your explanation, but very clearly, in my opinion, that Union Gas is liable for that cost. It's anyway, nothing more said. Page 143, the lodges. Could I get an excellent explanation, please, about all these write-offs at Wentworth Lodge and Macassa Lodge?
Hi, this is Bev, through the chair. Yes, these are residents from the lodges that have passed with no estate fees for accommodations and such, and no family that will step in. So we don't put their names. It's just the WL stands for Wentworth and M is for Macassa. But other than that, we don't provide any information that could be tracked back to the actual client. But these write-offs are always approved by the director of the lodges as well before they come to finance.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And Bev, long time no see.
Yes.
So I certainly
don't have
would.
a camera. I'm sorry.
That's right. I would certainly move the motion if you don't have one, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. So seeing no further speakers, I'll go back to you then. This item, sorry, Councillor Ferguson, my apologies.
Yeah, I'd be prepared to second it. I just want to compliment staff again. We collect $1 billion and we're only writing off $200,000. There isn't a private sector company who wouldn't envy that. And if you have $1 billion receivables and you only receivables and you only can't collect $213,000, and most of that is a big chunk of it is on lodges where people have passed and didn't have the resources to cover it off. So just congratulations again to our staff.
Thank you for that. So with that, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the previous speaker, but in case I'm asked, I need to be able to answer. And if I missed it, I apologize. On Appendix A of the report, the amounts under 1,000, the institution of McMaster is listed for $713.65 for a finance charge. Could someone explain that to me? Thank you.
Neil?
Through the chair, this is Bev. That would have been an invoice that McMaster has paid for, but didn't pay it within the due dates and refused to pay the interest charges. Now, we have a collection agency that we do send some delinquent accounts to, but they will not chase finance charges. So when you see some of these finance charges, the invoice has been paid. This is just the past due charges that they refuse to pay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So with that, I have a mover and Councillor Powers, seconded by Councillor Ferguson on item 10.1. Vote recorded vote, please. And Councillor Powers is a thumbs up. It's okay, Madam Clerk. That carries 7-0. Thank you, everyone. 10.2 is Development Charges Stakeholders Subcommittee Report 22-001, February 28, 2022. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the report on the floor? Moved by Councillor Vanderbeek, second by Councillor Johnson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask for a recorded vote, please. Okay, Councillor Powers and Johnson, thank you. Councillor Powers was a thumbs up, 7-0. Thank you. 10.3, Citizen Committee Report, Hamilton Women and Gender Equity Committee 2021 funds. They've been removed, correct, Madam Clerk? And this next one? Yes, thank you. No notice of motions, no motions, general information. So we have an amendment to the outstanding business list. 13.1A is items considered complete and needing to be removed. Well, no, that's not removed now, correct, Madam Clerk?
So through the chair, as we did additional staff direction that will be added to the outstanding business list, we could vote to remove this one as the new outstanding business list item will be added to it.
So with that, can I have a mover and a second to remove that item and have it amended correctly? Moved by Councillor Clark, second by Councillor Wilson. All in favor? Councillor Powers is thumbs up. Thank you. So committee members, we have next 2 items to go in camera. That's a closed session. So they're items, 3, 14.1, 14.2, and 14.3. May I have a motion to move into closed session pursuant to section 9.1, subsections A, E, F, and K of the city's procedural bylaw 21-021 as amended, and section 2392, subsections A, E, F, and K of the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to the security of the property of the municipality or local board, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privileges, including communications necessary for the purpose and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. So I have a mover and a seconder to please go in camera. Moved by Councillor Powers, second by Councillor Johnson. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Powers. This is a thumbs up. That carries 7-0. So before we go in camera, then members of the public are advised that during the closed session portion of the meeting, the live stream will broadcast as closed session in progress screen. The broadcast will resume when the closed session portion of the meeting is complete. Before we move into closed session, I would ask that all members of the public to please now exit the WebEx meeting, and thank you. As well, any staff that are not directly related to the in-camera items are now also asked to please exit the WebEx meeting. Thank you, everyone. Hey, Angela? Good. All right. Thank you. Now we're going on to, we're back in open session. So on item 14.1 is the cellular service and devices contract extension FCS 22020. May I have a mover and a second on the following? A, that direction provided to staff in closed session respecting report FCS 22020, cellular services and devices contract extension be approved and remain confidential until negotiations are completed and a contract is in place, and B, that the report FCS 22020 respecting the cellular services and devices contract extension and any appendices remain confidential. Moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Vanderbeek, and recorded vote, please. Councillor Ferguson?
I just got to get back into open. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
There you go.
Thank you. That carries everyone 7-0. Thank you. 14.2 is the city auditor reporting of serious matters to council, case number 50695, AUD 22002, citywide. May I have a mover and a seconder on the following? That report AUD 22002 respecting city auditor reporting of serious matters to council, case number 50695, remain confidential. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Vanderbeek. Thank you. Go. Councillor Powers, Councillor Vanderbeek, please. Councillor Powers, are you still in attendance? I don't see him.
I am. The screen keeps flicking on and off and that, so I'll use just my audio.
Okay.
So through the chair, the vote is recorded incorrectly as 6-0, but I will correct it to also include Councillor Powers.
I support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. That carries. Thank you. Then we're going to 14.3, commercial relationship between the City of Hamilton and McGill Construction, Ontario Inc., PW 2020-019, and FCS 22028, LS 22018, citywide. May I have a mover and a seconder on the following? A, that the direction provided to staff in closed session respecting report PW 22019, FCS 22028 and LS 22018, commercial relationship between the City of Hamilton and McGill Construction Ontario Inc. be approved and released publicly following approval by council. And B, that report PW 22019, FCS 22028 and LS 22018 respecting the commercial relationship between the City of Hamilton and McGill Construction Ontario Inc. remain confidential. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Clark, second by Councillor Powers. Electronic vote. That carries 7-0. Thank you, everyone. That was an excellent meeting. A little different being here in council chambers. Now, may I please have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Ferguson. A recorded vote again, last for audit and finance today. Thank you.
Good job, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Good job. Say hi to Mom for me.